Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games, and today we're going to be unboxing Fallout: Atomic Bonds. Now this is the second expansion for the Fallout board game, but it is quite a significant one because it is a cooperative upgrade pack. Now just to give you a bit of context, I'm going to go over the original game. Fallout, when released, was a game for 1 to 4 players, and even though it was a multiplayer game, there was no cooperative aspect to it. Players would choose one of 2 factions and would do everything they could during the course of the game to advance the cause of that faction. Now it led to players competing with each other, but also because of the mechanics of the game, they also shared quests, and the game just didn't quite work because it was going in too many different directions at once, with 4 separate players doing their own thing and 2 factions doing their own thing, and just didn't give quite the multiplayer experience that people wanted. This, however, was addressed slightly with the New California expansion pack. It added 2 new scenarios. However, one of the scenarios was Fallout 2, based in New California. And what made this scenario unique was that instead of having 2 factions to choose from, there was one faction that all players were against. So instead of sharing the board with 3 other people doing their own thing, you all actively worked together to advance the cause of the good guys and work against the faction, which was the game itself. And it led to a much more fun and fulfilling experience because players didn't feel like they had to compete for quests. Players coordinated with each other. So by doing all this, it led to a much more fun experience. It was so popular, in fact, that a lot of people homebrewed cooperative rules for all the scenarios in the game. And this is where Fallout Atomic Bonds come in, because it is a cooperative upgrade pack for all the remaining scenarios. And it's one that we've all been looking forward to. And I applaud Fantasy Flight for listening to the fans and finally coming out with this little expansion. So with no further ado, I'm going to put these aside, and we're going to see what is inside this magic little box. So opening the box for the very first time, we are greeted with quite a lot, actually. So we have new tokens. We have the instruction book. Nothing else in there, so we'll put that to one side. We have here the instruction. Now, like New California, it's just a singular sheet, which is a good thing. Actually, I tell a lie, it's about 2 pages worth in a fold-out.
If you're a fan of Fallout the board game, then we've got you well and truly covered here on The Lucky Roll. Have you watched our unboxing videos yet for Fallout New California, Fallout Wasteland Warfare, or most recently Fallout Shelter the board game? What about our video covering the top 5 reasons to love Fallout, or even our Atomic Bonds announcement reaction video? Not to forget our very popular ongoing series of Fallout playthrough videos? If you've missed any of these, check the info in the description below and follow the links to catch up. And don't forget to subscribe to The Lucky Roll to stay up to date with all of our future Fallout releases.
So these are the rules. Now it has, of course, the list of components and a very brief synopsis of the game. So fortunately, it won't take too long to figure out how to play the new game. We have here inside a new dice. Now this, of course, is the assist dice. This is quite interesting because the whole emphasis on this game is on cooperation. I think if a player is nearby to one player that's in combat, they can roll this dice and it allows them to assist in the combat action. Now there was 1 or 2 bad guys in the original game, and I think in the expansion, that needed 4 hits to actually effectively defeat. The Mirelurk Queen, one of them. What this die will do is it'll allow you to take on some of the bigger bad guys and include the Mirelurk Queen and try and beat it with a potential of 4 attacks. Or even certain really tough bosses like, say, the Super Mutant Behemoth. You're not on your own anymore. Another player can, if they're close by, I assume, can roll this dice and try and help you out. We also have here brand new cards, so we're just going to open this and see what we have in here. So we have these little symbol cards. Now I presume this is something new with the cooperative deck, that instead of using the agenda cards, which were one of the competitive parts in the original game, these are the cards that move the board icons forward. So as you can see here, it has all the usual signifiers. You've got the bugs, you've got the super mutants, you've got the star faction, you've got the raiders, you've got the robots, you've got the shield faction. So there is a whole series of them. So I presume that these are the new cards on the board that basically move the bad guy pieces around. We also have these cards, which are the lab cards. Now this is another interesting change in the mechanic of the game. In the original game, once a player completed a certain quest, they would get an agenda card. With the cooperative edition, not so. What this does is it gives you a workshop in which you can avail of certain advantages or equipment. So in this case, the Chem Lab. If you camp at or quest at any camp token, you can spend 3 caps to lose your addicted trait, which is something that's very handy. We also have a Rad Lab, in which, same thing, you can spend 3 caps to remove 3 radiation. So if you followed the Fallout playthrough videos I did, you'll see that I had significant problems with radiation. So this is certainly a card that would be very useful for me in these up and coming games. And finally we have the Med Lab, in which we can spend 3 caps to recover 8 hit points. So those are actual upgrade cards that you can avail of. We also have a whole heap of these cards, which I think they look like they're going to be modification cards. So we have here Furious. So during a fight, if it is the second fight action you performed this turn, generate 2 rerolls. Now, from what I remember seeing in the Fantasy Flight stream on this, these are something that are going to be added to shop items. So in an awful lot of cases, once players got fully kitted up with, say, a plasma gun or power armor or their chems of their choice or whatnot, there was no real point in going back to the shop anymore. However, what this does is this allows you to upgrade your goodies and give you another good reason to go to the shop. So that was an upgrade of Furious. This one is 2-shot. After you perform a fight action, you may perform a second fight action for free. You have Mutants. During a fight, generate 1 reroll if your mutation is activated. Now, mutation is a new aspect in this game that I'll talk about in a little bit. You have Explosive. During a fight, if it is not your turn, generate 2 rerolls. Berserkers. During a fight, generate 1 reroll if you have no armor value. Anti-armor. During a fight against an enemy that has armor, generate 1 reroll. Junkies. During a fight, if you are addicted, generate 2 rerolls. Troubleshooters. When you suffer damage during a fight against a robot icon enemy, suffer 1 less damage. Exterminators. When you suffer damage during a fight against a bug enemy, you suffer 1 less damage. You have Mutant Slayers, so when you suffer damage during a fight against a super mutant enemy, you suffer 1 less damage. And I presume Assassins is the same with Raiders and Chameleons, which is when enemies activate, you may exhaust this card. If you do, enemies ignore you until the end of the round. So this could be an actual, something akin to a stealth boy mechanic, which would work this time around. And Duelists. During a fight, if any die results match the filled in space on an enemy, reduce the enemy's number of hits by 1. And finally, Sprinters. When you perform a move action, gain 1 additional movement point, which, especially in a solo game, would be very useful. Of course, this is a cooperative one. Nevertheless, there is one character in the core game, which is the Enclave Soldier, or I believe, not the Enclave Soldier, is the Brotherhood of Steel Outcast, in which he can only move 1 space at a time. So this would be a very essential upgrade for this character to get. We have here what seem to be the Mutation Cards. Now, the Mutation Cards are a new trait. Once a player gets 5 rads, they activate a mutation card that they have been dealt face down at the start of the game. So each player is dealt a mutation card. Now, if you never go or hit 5 rads, the mutation is never activated. However, if you do hit 5 rads, this card is flipped up, and even if you get rid of all your radiation, the mutation card remains. So we'll have a quick look at what we have to play with here. We have Adrenal action. When you perform a fight action, inflict 1 additional hit. However, there's positive and negative aspects to these mutation cards, as you can see. So the negative is that your hit point maximum is reduced by 4. The next one is Chameleon. Enemies ignore you when they move. The negative is if you performed a move action this round, ignore the positive effect of this mutation, and enemies that move towards you move 1 additional space. So it's an interesting one if you need to quest significantly on certain spaces. However, if you're moving across the board, you will definitely get enemies moving towards you. However, in a cooperative scenario, that is interesting, because if you just kept on the move, you could distract other enemies away from other players that need to do essential things. The next mutation card is Unstoppable Isotope. During a fight, if an enemy damages you, you inflict 1 additional hit. However, during a fight, if an enemy damages you, suffer 1 radiation damage. We have Twisted Muscles. When you perform an action with a weapon that does not have ranged icon, inflict 1 additional hit. And the negative is that when you perform an action with a weapon that has a ranged icon, reduce the total number of hits you inflicted by 1. Now that's an interesting one. It certainly forces you to go for a melee build. We have here Talons. And we have here Talons. If you are treated as having strength during tests, you already have strength. Sorry, James, I'll just reread this one again. You are treated as having strength during tests. If you already have strength, generate 1 reroll. And the negative one is that you are trusted as not having agility during tests. You are treated as not having agility during tests. So that's an interesting one that gives you an extra special trait but completely negates one. We have here Speed Demon. So when you perform a move action, you gain 1 additional movement point, which would be very handy. The negative, however, is that if you perform a move action, you lose 1 hit point. Now that's a strange one. Certainly would benefit with the lab health upgrade. Nevertheless, that's an interesting one to have. We have Scaly Skin. Your shield or armor value is increased by 1 to a maximum of 3. The negative is when you perform a move action, you gain 1 fewer movement points. So if you are the Brotherhood Outcast, this is not a mutation you would want to have. Marsupial. You can have 2 additional cards in your inventory. Negative is that you are treated as not having intelligence during tests. We have Herd Mentality. During a test or a fight, exhaust a companion or be in the same space as another survivor to generate 2 rerolls. The negative is that you cannot generate rerolls unless you are in the same space as another survivor or have a companion. We have Healing Factor. So each time you perform an action, recover 1 hit point. However, you cannot use aid items. So that's an interesting one, that if you take serious hits in a battle, you can only recover 1 hit point at a time. We have Empath. So each time another survivor within 3 spaces of you suffers damage, they suffer 1 less damage. And the negative aspect is that each time you suffer damage, suffer 1 additional damage. We have Electrically Charged. So during a fight, if an enemy damages you, you inflict 1 additional hit. And the negative is that during a fight, when resolving an enemy hit, you suffer 1 additional damage. We have Egghead. You are treated as having intelligence during tests. If you already have intelligence, generate 1 reroll. And the negative is that you are treated as not having endurance during tests. And finally, the last mutation is Eagle Eyes. You are treated as having perception during tests. If you already have perception, generate 1 reroll during tests, and the negative is that you're treated as not having strength during tests. And we have one final set of cards here. So looking at these, they seem to be the workbenches. So this is the armor workbench. Reveal cards from the asset deck until a number of apparel clothing items equal to the number of workbench upgrades in play, including this one, are found. For each one of those clothing items, choose a survivor to gain that item. We have another workbench here, which is weapon workbench. Reveal cards from the asset deck until a number of weapon items equal to the number of workbench upgrades in play, including this one, are found. For each of those weapon items, choose a survivor to gain that item. And the final workbench is Tinker's Workbench. Gain 1 junk card from the loot deck, discard pile, or each workbench upgrade in play, including this one. Then shuffle the discard pile into the loot deck. Now we also have here, same type of card, we have generators. So this generator is a Vault Tech reactor where each survivor gains 2 XP for each generator upgrade in play, including this one. A fusion generator, each survivor gains 2 XP for each generator upgrade in play, including this one. And finally, power generator, which each survivor gains 2 XP for each generator in play, including this one. Now we also have, these are very interesting ones. Now I remember in the stream they talked about fast travel, and that's what this card is about. A radio beacon, so you gain 1 camp token for each fast travel upgrade in play, including this one. So my understanding is that you could set up beacons at certain points of the board and fast travel from one location to the other, so you're not necessarily just traipsing across the wasteland to fulfill a quest. So these seem to be these are all the same cards. They're all radio beacons, so I presume that you can set up 3 fast travel points in the game. And finally, we have these cards, which are slightly different. So we have complete 1 vault. A vault is complete when all the cards in its deck have been trashed. So these seems, perhaps these are the reward cards for the lab cards, workbench cards, generator cards, that if you meet these scenarios you get an actual perk. So this is completing a vault. Any camp token, discard 15 caps. So I presume you get these and can spend them to upgrade everything for the players. Any camp token, discard 15 caps. Have 3 workshop upgrades. Have 3 workshop upgrades. Have 3 workshop upgrades. A survivor gains their 6th special. That's there twice. Kill 3 level 3 enemies. Place caps on this card to keep track. And that is done twice. And finally, we have any camp token, discard 2 non-starting weapons. And any camp token, discard 2 non-starting apparel or clothing items. So these are all the cards in the deck, and as you can see, it adds some nice little changes to the mechanics. And finally, we're going to open up the actual scenarios themselves. Now we have some new card tokens, which, as you can see here, we have a star and a shield faction and what look like the camp icons from Fallout 76. And of course we have here the new scenarios, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So the first one, of course, is the Rise of the Master, which is Fallout 1, which in the expansion game came with 2 new scenarios. One was Fallout 2, the other was Fallout 1. This is obviously the cooperative edition for Fallout 1, and all survivors are loyal to the Brotherhood of the Steel. And you have... oh, this is interesting. You can play it twice. You can play it on behalf of the Master, and you can play it on behalf of the Brotherhood. So the enemy in... you have 2, what seems to me is 2 effective cooperative scenarios. One for the bad guys in the game and one for the good guys. Far Harbor has something similar, that you're working against the fog and working with the fog. The Commonwealth, again, has something similar, that you're working for the Institute and against the Institute. The same thing with the Pit, that you're working for the slavers and working against the slavers. And finally with the capital Wasteland, you're working for the Enclave and working against the Enclave. Now that is interesting. So instead of having 5 new cooperative scenarios, you actually have 10. Now that was something I was not expecting, and I'm very pleasantly surprised with this. Now there's no extra tiles in it. However, I don't think you need the expansion New California to play with this deck. So it's worth your while if you're going to invest in Fallout to get the New California expansion, because it does add a lot of extra little things, including new story cards. So, I mean, I'll just give you a quick example here of the difference between the maps. So, for example, we'll start with the Commonwealth. Now, as you can see, there's a significant difference between the core set map and the expansion set map, because the expansion comes with a lot more tiles, a lot more stories, and it makes it a lot more interesting. Now, the Atomic Bonds does not come with extra tiles. However, I presume that you can easily use either one of these maps. However, I think the expansion one from New California would certainly be the one that you want to play. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Fallout Atomic Bonds cooperative upgrade pack, and it's one that I am very much looking forward to trying and playing for myself. As soon as I can get friends to play this game with me, we'll have a review, and who knows, we might even have a playthrough in the future with the Atomic Bonds cooperative upgrade pack included. So until next time, this is Sean from The Lucky Roll. If you enjoyed this unboxing, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And until next time, good luck and God bless.
Lucky Roll is the home of the best board game reviews, news, competitions and discussions. We cover everything from the game of life to Gloomhaven, so don't miss out. Subscribe now to join the fun.